Hey everybody, today I want to talk about the importance of event types in AddressTwo. So we're going to take this as an example. Let's say it's Friday at 4:55 if 5 o'clock is your quitting time on a Friday. Lynn, your customer at Papermate, calls in and you do a good job at using your CRM and you document that call. So you go in and you're like, hey Lynn, great to hear from you. Yeah, sounds good. I'll see if anybody else is having that problem. So we'll go in here and we'll say, hey, wanted to know if anyone else was having the same, let's just say shipping problem he was having with UPS. You know what? I'm going to add a follow-up task and let's just give it a week. So we'll say, hey, in a week from now, sorry, my internet is a little slow today. So we'll go in here and say, hey, in a week from now, we added the follow-up task. We'll say, oh, let's not even say a week. Let's say Friday. Or no, we're saying it was Friday. So it was Friday the 23rd. He called in, wanted to know if anybody else was having a shipping problem. You know, I asked around, just literally yelled in the office. You know what? So next Friday, the 30th, I'm going to follow up with them. I'm going to say, did you, Troy, find anyone else having the same shipping problem with UPS? Question mark. We're not going to set a priority. I just want to I'm going to keep my ear out for the week. So top one was Friday. I've got a follow-up set up for the following Friday. The weekend happens. I get crazy busy, and it's like on Wednesday of next week, I get a call from somebody that says they're having a shipping problem with UPS. And for the life of me, the older I get, I can't remember everything. And, if I had to look it up in paper, I'll shake my paper so you can hear it on the microphone. I've got pages and pages of notes. So what's the importance of that? Well, here's what I would do is I would go in and I'd go, hey, well, maybe I could check my AddressTwo account and see if I put it in there. So I'm going to go in and say, hey, who in the last week has had any shipping problems? So I can go in here and I can quickly just go in and say, I'm going to filter by history because I thought somebody called in, and I'm going to say, hey, history, they called into me, so I'm going to look and see if I put in, event type. What was it? Did they call? Well, maybe they called out. So we'll say, who did I talk to in the last, let's just give it a week. End date of, let's say it's Wednesday, whatever. Who did I talk to? Well, if I apply filter, here, because I put event type called out, it shows up. But AddressTwo can help him grow his business. No, it must have not been Lynn. Now I could do another thing where I could just go in and say event type was blank and just search who in all the history of AddressTwo. Oh, look. Hey, wanted to know if anybody else was having the same problem. Now, I spent an extra couple seconds there. Now, imagine if this particular, and this is a bad example, but if I had hundreds of history records throughout the week, I would not be able to do and go in and say, hey, who did I talk to or called out to last week who was having a problem with UPS? Oh, it wasn't Lynn. I don't know. So, again, I stress the importance of using your event type in AddressTwo. So again, I'm going to go over here. Now I can edit this in my history to say, hey, that event type was actually a call. So I'll say call. But then let's just go in and show you the proper way to use event types in the system. So Lynn calls in today. Today is Monday, January 26th of 2014. Had a couple questions about shipping. So I go in and I answer any of those questions he had. As I'm talking to him, I'm using AddressTwo and saying he called in at 3 o'clock on Monday. Event type called out, or let's just say he called into me. So that means he called into Troy Hanna and wanted to know if USPS was a better shipper. I said yes. He said he'd think about moving from UPS to USPS. I told him I'd follow up in a week. Now, note that I did put in that he called in. I'm going to go to my follow-up task. And again, I'm going to make sure that I say, hey, on Friday of this week, I need to follow up with or call out to Lynn Driver so that I know what he's doing. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to schedule my task for Friday. I'm going to make sure that I call out to Lynn Driver, see if he is ready to ship with USPS. Hit save and I'm done. Now, for those of you that work for larger organizations that are AddressTwo users, this is a primary way that your managers are also checking on what you're doing. And managers, beware that this is a way you can check on how busy or not busy your employees are, and that they're actually using your CRM. So what do I mean by that? So now, let's say I work for a company that requires me to make 15 phone calls a week and set 2 appointments a week. As a manager, I can go in and I can say, hey, I'm going to find out the history of Troy Hanna, the user, and I'm going to see how many calls out he made this week. So we'll just say January 19th through the 26th. How many calls out did Troy make? Because if Troy didn't make 15 phone calls, hopefully that means he had 15 appointments that week instead. Uh-oh. Troy only had 2 calls out this week. Well, let's go in and say, hey, instead of calls out, how many appointments did he have? Ooh, Troy didn't have any appointments. Well, then in that case, maybe, let's just see if he had calls in. You know, maybe he's been answering a lot of phone calls this week. He's not using his CRM or he's not working. So Troy needs to be followed up with and make sure that he's doing his job. This is also a great way for you yourself to just make sure that you're staying on task. So, you know, as a sales guy, if Friday rolls around and you're like, I'm kind of bored on a Friday, what else can I do? You know for a fact that, you know, hey, it takes me 10 phone calls a week to get 1 sale, or it takes me, 50 emails a week to get 1 sale. Use this to your advantage so that you know you're staying on top of things, that you're pushing your company and yourself as a salesperson forward. So that's a few ways to use the event types, and I can't stress enough how important selecting those event types in both your history, tasks, and pipelines are. Now, to go into a little bit more detail, let's say in event types. Now you click on here, and in your account you have your default event types. And you could click on event type here, and that's where you will see all the default ones. I added Hokey Pokey and Chicken Dance as an example, but here are the default event types. Now if, for instance, you'll never use the Hokey Pokey or Chicken Dance in an event type, as administrators you have the ability to go in and make that change. So go to your admin panel, click on event types. Here's where you can add, subtract, multiply, whatever you want to do, or remove. So I want to say I want to remove the Chicken Dance and the Hokey Pokey. But I also want to add sent postcard. So I want to make sure that that one's added. And I can add as many as I want. So, called is boss. And really nail down that event type so that I'm better segmenting my actions and my tasks in my CRM. So this video again today was to go over the importance of event types in AddressTwo. If you have any questions, just let us know by emailing support@address2.com.